He was finally opening up to you. He was calling more, sharing his thoughts, making you feel like something real was beginning. Then suddenly, he changed. The same man who once couldn't stop talking to you became quiet. The same person who made you feel wanted started acting distant. And now you are stuck with questions you cannot answer. Did I do something wrong? Was everything he said fake? Why would someone come so close only to disappear? But what if the reason he pulled away is not what you think? What if his silence is hiding a truth most people never understand? Because sometimes, when a man begins to feel something deeper, the first thing he does is not move closer. He creates distance. Not because he feels nothing, but because something inside him has been awakened. A fear, a wound, a feeling he cannot easily control. And the way you respond in that moment can change everything. Will you chase him and lose yourself trying to get answers? Or will you remain calm and discover what his silence is truly revealing? Because the biggest test in love is not when someone is giving you attention. It is when they suddenly stop. And what happens next may reveal more about your connection than anything he has ever said. He tells you he likes you. He opens his heart, and then suddenly he disappears. One moment, he is sharing his thoughts, revealing personal things, and making you feel a genuine connection. The next moment, he becomes quiet, distant, almost like the closeness between you never happened. Yesterday, his words felt warm. His energy felt loving. He made you feel special. But today, he feels unreachable, like a completely different person. And you find yourself asking the same painful question again and again. Does he really have feelings for me? Or am I just being pulled into a game that will eventually hurt me? But what if the situation is not as simple as it appears? What if his distance is not always a sign that he does not care? What if sometimes a man pulls away not because he feels nothing, but because he feels something deeper than he expected? Because love can be frightening. When someone starts becoming important, when emotions become real, it can awaken fears that were hidden for years. And sometimes, instead of moving closer, a person instinctively steps back. You know that confusing feeling when your heart wants to believe in something beautiful, but your inner voice tells you to be careful. When his actions and words don't seem to match, you start questioning everything. You feel emotionally exhausted, yet somehow even more attached. That push and pull creates a storm inside you. Even a strong woman can begin wondering if she is seeing things clearly. But if you have ever loved deeply, if you have experienced both the magic and the pain of emotional connection, then understanding this pattern can change the way you see relationships. There is a quiet moment when a woman begins to realize she is facing a test. It does not happen through a dramatic argument. It does not come with a big announcement. It happens in silence. Suddenly, he calls less. His messages become shorter. His energy changes. The person who once seemed so present starts creating distance, but without explaining why. And you begin questioning yourself. Did I misunderstand what we had? Was the connection real? Or was I only imagining the closeness? In that silence, something deeper awakens inside you. A voice asking, am I truly valued? Am I emotionally safe? Am I being loved or am I being controlled? What many people fail to understand is that someone who is developing real feelings does not always move toward you immediately. Sometimes they retreat, not because they want to hurt you, but because emotional closeness forces them to confront parts of themselves they have avoided. Love challenges the identity they have built. It brings old wounds to the surface. It creates vulnerability. And vulnerability can feel dangerous. Sometimes a man creates distance because, consciously or unconsciously, he is trying to understand whether the connection feels stable. He wants to know if the relationship can survive moments of uncertainty. He may be watching how you respond when he is not constantly giving attention. Can you remain peaceful when affection is not being shown every second? Can you stay connected to yourself even when someone else becomes unpredictable? For someone who has experienced unhealthy relationships or emotional wounds before, this moment can feel familiar in a painful way. The younger part of you that learned love comes with anxiety, starts searching for answers. You don't just want reassurance. You feel like you need it to feel safe. And that is where the real challenge begins. Not for him, for you. Because during his silence, your mind can become your biggest battlefield. You start asking, did I make a mistake? Is he losing interest? Should I do something to fix this? Do I need to prove that I am worthy? But maybe his distance is showing you something important. Maybe it is revealing the moments where you leave yourself behind just to hold on to someone else. Maybe the real lesson is not about whether he chooses you. Maybe it is about whether you continue choosing yourself. A woman who truly knows her worth does not fall apart when someone becomes distant. She does not chase every small sign of attention. She does not abandon her peace just because someone else becomes uncertain. Instead, she learns to stay grounded within herself. She understands that her value does not increase when someone gives her attention, and it does not decrease when someone pulls away. Her power comes from knowing who she is, even in moments when she does not have all the answers. Real feminine strength is not about controlling another person's actions. It is not about forcing someone to stay close. It is about trusting yourself enough to allow the truth to reveal itself. She does not beg for connection because she is afraid of losing someone. She does not ignore her own feelings just to keep someone interested. She stays calm. She observes. She allows actions to speak louder than promises. And whether he realizes it or not, what he notices is not just your reaction. He notices your emotional stability. He notices whether you can handle uncertainty without losing your confidence. Can you remain respectful toward yourself when things feel unclear? Can you choose dignity instead of desperation? Can you stay centered when you are not receiving constant reassurance? This is where genuine connection is tested, because real intimacy is not created through endless validation. It is built through emotional strength. It grows when two people can experience moments of uncertainty and still remain secure within themselves. When you stop chasing and start standing firmly in your own energy, something changes. The dynamic changes. A person can feel the difference between someone who is desperately trying to be chosen and someone who already knows they are valuable. That kind of confidence is powerful. It is peaceful. It is naturally attractive. But this journey does not end with distance. Another lesson appears, and this one is not about him becoming quiet. It is about boundaries. There comes a moment in every connection when you have to understand the difference between affection and disrespect. Maybe you are spending time together, laughing, enjoying each other's company, and everything feels easy. Then he makes a comment. Maybe he says something about your past. Maybe he makes a joke about your appearance. Maybe he suggests that you are too emotional, too intense, or too difficult. He may say it playfully, but something inside you feels uncomfortable. Or maybe he crosses a personal boundary, assuming access to parts of you that you have not offered. And suddenly you have to ask yourself, was that harmless? This is another kind of test. Not a test of your ability to please him. A test of your ability to protect yourself. Because emotional connection requires boundaries. A healthy person wants to know that you have values, standards, and a strong sense of self. A relationship cannot become emotionally safe if one person constantly sacrifices their comfort just to avoid conflict. Think about it like building a home. Without a strong foundation, even the most beautiful house cannot survive a storm. The same is true in relationships. Your boundaries are not walls designed to push people away. They are the foundation that allows the right people to come closer. A woman with strong self-respect understands that being kind does not mean accepting everything. Being loving does not mean allowing herself to be diminished. Her softness and her strength exist together. She can be compassionate while still protecting her peace. She can be open while still being aware. She can love someone deeply while refusing to lose herself. True feminine confidence does not come from fighting for control. It comes from knowing what deserves access to your heart and what does not. And this is where many women struggle, especially those who have experienced painful relationships before. They want closeness, but they also fear being hurt again. They want to speak their truth, but they worry that honesty will push someone away. So they laugh when something hurts. They stay silent when something feels wrong. They pretend everything is okay because they do not want to ruin the connection. But every time you silence yourself to keep someone, you send a message that your feelings are negotiable. A woman who respects herself understands that uncomfortable moments are opportunities to show others how she wants to be treated. She does not need anger. She does not need drama. She simply communicates with calm confidence. She can say, "That doesn't feel right to me." And in that moment, everything changes. Because she is no longer trying to earn love, she is showing that she already has love and respect for herself. That energy creates a different kind of attraction. She becomes someone who is not only desired but respected. someone whose presence carries strength, someone worth showing up for. But even after you set a boundary, another quiet moment may come. He may step back again. He may watch. He may wonder whether your confidence was real or just a reaction. And that is when the next lesson begins. The next challenge goes even deeper. It is not about what you say. It is about who you become when there is no attention, no reassurance, and no constant proof that someone cares. One of the most confusing experiences is when someone opens up emotionally and then suddenly becomes distant. One day he tells you how special you are. He tells you that talking to you feels different. He makes you feel like you have a rare connection. Then, without warning, he disappears into his own world. Not forever, but long enough for questions to enter your mind. You begin replaying conversations. You analyze every message. You wonder if you said something wrong. You search for the exact moment when his energy changed. And that is what makes this kind of distance so difficult. It is not a clear rejection. It is uncertainty. And sometimes uncertainty hurts more than a simple answer. So why does someone pull away after becoming vulnerable? Why would a person create distance after showing genuine emotions? Because when feelings become deeper, closeness can feel overwhelming. For some people, emotional intimacy brings both excitement and fear. They want connection, but they also fear what connection requires. Being truly seen, being emotionally exposed, allowing another person to matter. Love is not only about happiness. It also involves risk. The risk of getting hurt, the risk of losing control, the risk of letting someone see the parts of you that you usually hide. And sometimes when those fears become active, a person creates space to understand what they are feeling. Their distance is not always about punishment. Sometimes it is about their own internal struggle. They are trying to understand whether they can trust the connection, whether they can be accepted even when they are imperfect, whether they can be loved without having to constantly protect themselves. But while they are dealing with their own emotions, something important happens inside you. Their silence brings your hidden fears to the surface. The fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being enough, the belief that you have to work harder, give more, or prove yourself to keep someone interested. But this is the moment where your growth begins. Because the greatest test is not whether someone comes closer. The greatest test is whether you remain connected to yourself when someone steps away. Can you sit with uncertainty without losing your peace? Can you resist the urge to chase answers from someone who is creating confusion? Can you give yourself the same love and patience that you are hoping to receive from another person? This is where emotional maturity is created. A woman who is secure within herself does not ignore her feelings. She acknowledges them. She feels the disappointment. She recognizes the fear, but she does not allow those emotions to control her actions. She does not send endless messages searching for reassurance. She does not beg someone to choose her. She does not try to convince someone of her value, because she understands something powerful. The right person does not need to be convinced of your worth. Your value exists before anyone recognizes it. When you stop abandoning yourself for someone else's attention, your entire energy changes. You become calmer. You become more present. You become someone who is choosing love from a place of strength instead of fear. And that is when relationships begin to transform. Because love is not supposed to feel like a constant battle to prove that you deserve to stay. Healthy love allows two people to show up as themselves. It allows space. It allows honesty. It allows both people to grow. The woman who knows herself does not fear silence the way she once did. She understands that silence reveals truth. If someone genuinely cares, they will find their way back through communication, effort, and consistency. And if they do not, she still remains whole, because her identity was never dependent on someone's attention. The deepest attraction is not created when you chase someone. It is created when you become deeply connected to yourself. When you stop asking, "How do I make someone choose me?" and start asking, "Am I choosing myself?" Because the strongest love is not the kind that makes you lose yourself in another person. The strongest love is the kind that helps you become more yourself. So if someone pulls away, do not immediately assume you are losing something valuable. Sometimes distance reveals what words cannot. Sometimes silence shows you where you still need healing. And sometimes the greatest relationship you build is the one you create with yourself first. Stand in your worth. Protect your peace. Stay open to love, but never at the cost of abandoning who you are. Because the person who is truly meant to walk beside you will not require you to shrink, chase, or beg. They will meet you where you stand. Because in the end, Love does not grow through chasing someone or constantly trying to prove that you are worthy of being chosen. Real love grows through presence. It grows when two people can face uncertainty without running away, remain emotionally open, and meet each other honestly without losing who they are. But moments like these can awaken something deeper inside a woman. They can bring back old pain she thought she had already healed. The memories of being ignored. The experience of someone disappearing without explanation. The moments when she felt unwanted, replaced, or abandoned. Those memories do not simply stay in the past. Sometimes they return like echoes. And the nervous system does not always recognize the difference between an old wound and a new situation. A little distance can feel like danger. Silence can feel like rejection. And without awareness, she may react from fear instead of responding from wisdom. She starts trying to repair something before knowing if anything is actually broken. She sends more messages. She tries harder. She searches for ways to bring back the closeness. She begins carrying the responsibility for the entire connection. And that is where the emotional trap begins. The cycle of anxiety, the constant need for reassurance, the feeling of being attached to uncertainty instead of connected to peace. But a woman who has done the inner work sees silence differently. She no longer sees every pause as a sign that love is disappearing. She understands that space can exist without rejection. She allows herself to breathe. She stays present. She does not rush to fill every empty moment because she has learned that her peace does not depend on another person's attention. Her calmness is not because she does not care. It is because she finally understands herself. True emotional safety does not come from controlling someone else's behavior. It comes from learning how to lead yourself. And whether he realizes it or not, a man who is developing deeper feelings notices this. He notices what happens when he stops constantly giving reassurance. Does she panic? Does she chase? Does she lose herself trying to restore his attention? Or does she pause, regulate her emotions, and continue living her own life? Because what he sees is not just her reaction. He sees her relationship with herself. He notices her emotional maturity, her ability to remain whole even when things are uncertain. And something begins to shift. He no longer feels only attraction. He begins to feel safety. Because a woman who remains secure in his absence is a woman he can trust in his presence. But safety has many different layers. And sometimes the next challenge does not come through distance. Sometimes it comes through closeness. It comes when he slowly begins revealing parts of himself that he normally keeps hidden. Because even the strongest person can feel afraid of being truly seen. You may notice it in the small things. The change in his voice when he talks about painful memories. The moment he admits he is not as confident as everyone believes. The quiet confession about a past relationship that deeply hurt him. These are not just stories. They are emotional doors opening. They are moments where he is allowing you into a private part of his world. But behind every confession is often a silent question. Will you still see me the same way after knowing this? Will you judge me? Will you look at me differently? For many people, especially those who are taught that vulnerability is weakness, opening up feels terrifying. It feels like removing armor in the middle of a storm. The walls do not come down because he wants to impress you. They come down because he is wondering if you are someone who can hold his truth with care. Can you listen without judging? Can you understand without trying to control? Can you offer compassion without losing yourself? This is where emotional depth becomes more than just being kind. It becomes the ability to be present, not rescuing, not fixing, not carrying another person's pain as your own. Just being a safe place while allowing them to take responsibility for their own healing. And this is where many women struggle, especially women who have learned to feel valuable by saving others. When he opens up, they immediately step into the role of healer. They become the person who wants to fix every wound. They start carrying emotions that were never theirs to carry. Without realizing it, they stop being his partner and start becoming his therapist. And eventually that creates imbalance. Not because he does not appreciate her love, but because a healthy relationship cannot be built when one person becomes responsible for another person's emotional survival. A woman with true self-worth can care deeply without losing herself. She can listen, she can support, she can offer warmth, but she remains centered. She does not make his healing her mission. She allows him to see himself through her acceptance while still respecting his own journey. And in that space, something beautiful happens. He begins understanding that love does not require losing independence. He learns that vulnerability and strength can exist together. He learns that he can show his imperfect sides and still be accepted. But then another question appears. Was her compassion genuine? Or was it only there when things felt easy? Will she still offer understanding when he is struggling? When his behavior is difficult? When his emotions create challenges? He may not ask these questions directly, but he observes. And slowly, another lesson begins. And slowly, another lesson begins. He starts paying attention to something deeper than attraction. He watches for emotional consistency, not because he is trying to judge you, but because every meaningful relationship eventually asks the same question. Can I trust this person with my real self? At first, chemistry carries the connection. Conversations feel effortless. Everything feels exciting and new, but over time, excitement settles. The masks become heavier to wear. Real personalities begin to appear. That is where love either grows or quietly fades. He notices how you respond when life is not perfect. When he is stressed, when he makes mistakes, when he disappoints you without meaning to. He is no longer looking for someone who agrees with everything he says. He is looking for someone who can disagree without making him feel worthless. There is a difference. Healthy love does not require two people to think alike. It requires two people to respect one another, even when they see life differently. This is where emotional maturity becomes more important than emotional intensity. Anyone can love when everything feels magical. Anyone can stay close when there is no conflict. But real intimacy is built during uncomfortable conversations. It grows when two people choose understanding over pride. It grows when they become curious instead of defensive. Instead of asking, "How do I prove I'm right?" they begin asking, "What is really happening inside the person I love?" That simple shift changes everything. Because beneath anger is often disappointment. Beneath criticism is often fear. Beneath silence is often hurt. When we learn to look beneath behavior instead of reacting only to behavior, relationships become places of healing instead of battlefields. That does not mean accepting disrespect. It does not mean tolerating unhealthy behavior. Healthy compassion always includes healthy boundaries. You can understand someone's pain without allowing it to become your pain. You can love someone deeply without abandoning your own needs. Many people confuse sacrifice with love. They believe that loving someone means endlessly giving until there is nothing left of themselves. But love that requires you to disappear is not love. It is emotional exhaustion disguised as devotion. Real love allows both people to exist. Both voices matter. Both hearts matter. Both people continue growing. A woman with genuine confidence understands this naturally. She knows that her value is not measured by how much she sacrifices. Her worth is not determined by how many problems she solves. She does not earn love by becoming indispensable. She receives love because she shows up honestly. She remains kind without becoming responsible for another adult's emotional life. That balance creates something rare. It creates freedom. The relationship stops feeling like an obligation. Instead, it becomes a choice. And every day, both people choose one another again. Not out of fear, not out of loneliness, but out of genuine desire. Ironically, this is what allows love to become stronger.